All right, so now we have part 2 of this lesson. So let's have a third example. So we have y equals the absolute value of x plus 1 minus 3. So here we have two things going on. So the first two examples, the first one was a horizontal shift, the second one was a vertical. Here it's a mix, it's both. So I've got a horizontal shift. Okay, actually I'm going to just put HOR, shift, of 1 unit left. Okay, because it's plus 1, you do the opposite. And then a vertical shift of 3 units down. Okay, so again, I'm using this shifting for this type of deal just because my coefficient here is a positive 1. It needs to be positive or negative 1. And my coefficient for that x is a positive 1, which it must always be a positive 1. And you might even look back to the previous lesson and be like, oh man, I could have done this before, Mrs. Gerwitz. Like, why did you make us do all this work? Well, it's just, because you can always double check yourself. I'm teaching you kind of a shortcut with these translations and understanding how graphs work. However, you need to know why, where these things are coming from, and that's why we needed to learn that last lesson. Also, if the coefficient for x is negative 1, you need to know what the heck to do. Or if the coefficient for the absolute value is 3, well, it's probably good that I taught you that first before, trying to show you all the easy stuff. Come on now. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and graph. So I have to go 1 unit left and 3 units down, and that's my new vertex here. So again, I'm going to go 1 to the right and 1 up, and 1 to the left and 1 up. So I am good to go, and I have graphed that. You could always truly find the vertex, find a left coordinate, find a right coordinate. But man, if you can do that shortcut and save yourself some time, that might be 5 extra minutes of, a little Netflix show that you need to watch. Okay, just keep that in mind. And then I have one final one that we have not looked at is if I have the negative absolute value. So negative absolute value of x minus 2 plus 1. Okay, so nothing really changes too much. We still have a horizontal shift here. We've got both a horizontal and vertical shift. So we've got a horizontal shift, which is actually going to be 2 units right. Okay, because remember it's the opposite. And a vertical shift, 1 unit up. Okay, the only difference is my coefficient for the absolute value is negative. So let's talk about what we would have to do for that. So, let's go ahead and plot our vertex. So I'm going to have to go 2 units right and 1 unit up. Now, because it's negative, remember, a negative absolute value has an upside down V. It's actually a reflection over the x-axis. That's the official term for it because it's negative. So instead of going right 1 up 1, I'm going to go right 1 down 1. And then instead of going left 1 up 1, I'm going to go left 1 down 1. And then I can go ahead and make my V just like that. So, there you go. Let's move on to another one where we have to write our equation. Let me actually get back to whiteboard here, where you need to write the equation given the information. Okay, so this is kind of brand new set of directions, so that's why I'm saying it's number 1. So we have to go up 2 and right 4. Okay, so then I'm going to have y equals the absolute value. So because I'm going right 4, that means it's going to be minus 4, because remember it's opposite of what you'd normally think. And then up 2, I'm going to add 2. So therefore, right here, I wrote the equation. So we're good to go. It's awesome. The only difference would be is if they said, it is a reflection across the x-axis. Anytime that you see a reflection across the x-axis, that means it's going to be a negative absolute value of x. Okay, so keep that in mind. Anytime you might see that, and especially that terminology is very important. And then I just have one more problem. And so this is write the original equation of the graph that was translated 3 units down and 2 units left. Okay, so let me put a graph here. So let's talk about what that what the new graph looks like, okay? So, drawing a graph. Give me a moment. Okay, so my new equation has a vertex at -3. Oops, I did -4 instead. Whoop, my bad. 1, 2, 3. -3, -2. Okay, and it's also facing down. So this graph has been translated 3 units down and 2 units left. So now I need to find the original. Okay, so I have to go opposite. It was translated 3 units down. That means this vertex I need to move 3 units up. 1, 2, 3 units up. And then instead of 2 units left, it needs to go 2 units right. 1, 2. So here is where my original was. And you can always double check by making sure that if you went 3 units down and 2 units left, that you get to my like red one that I have here, like the new one here. Okay, so now I need to write the original equation. It could help if I could spell. So I'm going to have y equals, and I am going to have the negative absolute value because it is facing down. Okay, so it's opening down. And so now I have to do x, and I know I'm going to add because I had to move left, and it's just going to be 1 because I had to move left 1 from the origin. Okay, so whenever you're writing these equations, it's always related to the origin. I'm not writing an equation of translation. I'm writing the original equation where it's at, so I'm always basing it off of the origin. So I have the negative absolute value of x plus 1, and then it also moved up 1. So then I'm going to have plus 1 on top of that. So at this time, I wrote my original equation, and I am good to go. And you're going to see a lot of practice problems with the written assignment that has, where you're going to have to write an equation either just given certain information, like this number 1, or that you already have seen a translation and you need to write the original. So being able to manipulate and work with that. One other thing that I like to remind people of with this stuff, this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4, because I might ask you on a quiz or test to graph something where the vertex lies in the 4th quadrant. Well, you need to know what the heck the 4th quadrant is, so I needed to give you a little bit of a refresher on that. So at this time, that is it with the notes, so have fun doing the work in class.